It is inevitable that during a climate change discussion, one individual will bring up the topic of polar ice. Generally, these individuals attempt to freeze the conversation on the fact that ice is increasing on certain areas of the globe, and they attempt to gloss over the fact that there is a net negative, a net decrease in global ice. Let us remember our previous tools and control for the variables necessary to make adequate presumptions about what's going on in the world. We must note that there are two different types of ice that we will be discussing: sea ice and land ice. Sea ice extends over the ocean. When these ice shelves gain or lose ice, there is only a small change in the sea level, and this is mainly due to the density difference between solid ice and liquid water. However, these ice shelves can cause problems in other ways. Calving is the result of glacial movement. This, along with melting, can result in large icebergs that move about our oceans. Once these icebergs melt, of course, their fresh water is given back to the ocean. Additionally, when we lose sea ice, we are losing a reflector for the globe. This reflective material aids in regulating global temperature, and we have already affected it by putting soot into the atmosphere, which falls whenever it snows. It should also be noted that we are in fact in decline as far as Arctic sea ice goes. 2016 is actually slated to beat out 2008 and 2009's record lows. To control for all variables and make sure we're not just making things up, we look at the September of every year and compare it to previous years. That is the point at which sea ice is at its lowest extent. While we only have data from 1980 to 2015, we have still seen dramatic and measurable declines in each September. The Arctic is the majority sea ice, so now we may turn our discussion to land ice. Land ice actually makes up the bulk of the Earth's freshwater ice. Up to 70% of it is stored in both Greenland and Antarctica. If the land ice melted, the sea levels would rise 70 meters or more. Ice covering the Antarctic is unique. It is the result of thousands of years of snowfall resulting in the buildup of ice. Since this is such a slow process, this means that any calving or melting will result in permanent changes, at least so far as our generation and several generations are concerned. Of course, this continent also has cyclical ice shelves as well. Sea ice expands in the winter and contracts in the summer according to the southern hemisphere's seasonal cycles. The air and sea around Antarctica are getting warmer, and this results in the expansion of the glaciers. People mistakenly believe that because there's an expansion, that must be a good thing. Antarctica's sea ice is only growing at 0.9% per decade. However, the Arctic is losing sea ice at a rate of 4.1%. This is a volumetric decline. Essentially, this means that we're in a deficit of 400,000 kilometers cubed of sea ice every single year. This is equal to 160 billion Olympic swimming pools. There was a study that was conducted that found we may be gaining at least 14 gigatons of ice every year in East Antarctica. However, the margin of error on that study was so large that it may very well be that we actually have a decline in this area, and we just need careful further study. Regardless, even assuming that is true, there is more loss in West Antarctica and the Antarctic Peninsula than anything that East Antarctica could bring to the table. Every year, they shed 85 gigatons of ice that will never be regained in our lifetimes, our children's lifetimes, our grandchildren's lifetimes, or many lifetimes after that. The margin of error on those measurements are also much smaller, and even in their most conservative estimate, they still would be losing more than East Antarctica is gaining. Thus, we have a net loss of ice that's going into our oceans, and people are still out there denying reality. This story isn't even over yet, though. We're also experiencing major losses in glaciers that aren't at the poles and are elsewhere on our globe. In fact, Greenland's seasonal melt kicked off a full month and a half before it normally would have, and has resulted in more melt than ever before. Unfortunately, no matter how you present these facts, or no matter how you would like to look at it, we are entering territory that we do not know about. Sea and land, snow and ice are in decline globally, which are increasing our sea levels, decreasing the salinity of our seas, and destroying oceans that we have not fully examined yet. This is also all the result of us. We can't feel too guilty about it, but we should start moving away to the future, to what the 21st century can actually do for us. There are a lot of people on our planet still that are carrying around emotional baggage and mindsets that don't fit modern society. If we're planning a mission to Mars by 2018, which NASA and SpaceX are doing, then we need the mindset to go along with it. Why should we move on to take care of another planet when we can't even take care of our own? Thank you for joining me, Witchlings. I know that we can do better, and we will do better because of people like you. I appreciate you, and I hope that you know you are incredible. Stay safe, and until next time, bye.